I want to welcome in, let's see, I think we've got Genelle Kunst here and Tanya Plaza. Genelle is actually the global head of marketing for dotdigital. And then we have Tanya Plaza, who is the head of deliverability. And we'll let them beam in here real quick so we can say hello. How are you doing? Is that Genelle there?
I'm here. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. Nice to meet you. And hi, Tanya.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. I know you've got sort of I think you're going to have a discussion here about some of the data strategies to fuel your e-commerce marketing, and that should be very interesting. And of course, there may be other things, but the next 10 minutes is yours.
Yeah, so we have slides, but they're basically just, oh yeah, I can share my screen.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead and bring those up so we'll make sure that looks okay. I wasn't sure if you had slides to accompany the conversation. I'm glad you do.
It's pretty simple because it's 10 minutes, so we just want to have something in front of everybody. Can you see the slides that way?
Yes, it looks great. You guys sound great, and I'll get out of the way. Take it away.
Okay. Hi everyone, nice to meet you. As John mentioned, I'm Genelle Kunst, global head of marketing for dotdigital. I'm mostly here to ask questions of my colleague Tanya Plaza, who's head of deliverability and always has a ton of great information to share. So today we're going to talk about 5 ways to fuel your data-driven marketing strategy. And we're just going to touch on kind of 5 quick topics, really focused around what we call responsible data strategies when thinking about marketing communications. I'm just going to skip to the next slide. It should be, okay, so first question for Tanya. So when we think about responsible data collection, what are some of your top tips when we're thinking about responsible marketing communications?
So it might seem pretty simple, but when it comes down to it, it's to get consent. And I'm sure that our audience has all heard that many times, but getting consent and setting the right expectations at the point of collection really does help consumers have an understanding of what they're going to receive and what digital messaging should they expect, making it clear for them to be able to interact with businesses in the way that they want to, and will really maximize the success for that email program or digital messaging program.
Actually, on that point, digital messaging, more and more we're looking at collecting mobile numbers, right? So we can start to move into the SMS channels. Do you have any kind of tips around making expectations clear around what we're collecting, what's required, what they're actually opting into?
Absolutely, and it's going to go a little bit into what we slide 4 a little bit later, but really making sure that consumers understand what messaging you're going to be sending them, really making sure that the language that you're using is very clear, making sure that you're giving serious thought into how your business is supporting where data is stored and how consumers understand you're using their data. So that it's pretty important that it's across all of the digital messaging channels, not just for email. So when you're talking about SMS, it's definitely important that consumers understand how you're using that information.
All right, I know we're having to move through these quickly. So the second one is, right, you've collected the data, you have what you need, but before you kind of go crazy using it, you have to keep it secure. So what are your top tips for responsible data security?
It's just making sure that your recipients and consumers know that their data is safe with you. Some of the ways for you to do that is making sure that your data is stored in a secure way, that it's being, that when your data is in transit, that it's being done in a safe way. Look at external certifications such as ISO 27001, and making sure that privacy and data management for those consumers that want to know what you're doing, that they have access to that information, and that they're able to understand how you handle their data.
And what kind of, well, I was just going to say, because you work with our customers quite frequently on a lot of this. So is there any maybe questions that folks should be asking of their vendors to ensure that they're kind of digging into data security and and understanding kind of the credentials of the people that are holding their, not just their data, but their customers' data.
Yeah, understand who your audience is, what region and location your audience is in. Make sure to check out the privacy policies, and at dotdigital, we have a trust center where we have all of the different pieces of information around our data, where that information can be gathered. And so if it's just making sure that you have information available for consumers to be able to find. Yeah. And then I have a question for you. So what are some of the, like, talking about marketing automation, what are some of the top tips for leveraging data in responsible marketing automation?
Yeah, so I think if you've gotten to the point where you've collected the data and you're holding it securely and you're working with customers, whether that's sort of, a B2C or B2B perspective, if you're not using the data appropriately in marketing automation, then you're going to lose the trust, right? So that means have segments set up within your marketing automation platform, and then use the segments. And then if your customers are not responding to the messages that you're sending them, even if they're not opting out, pay attention to people that aren't clicking through, that aren't opening, and continually evolve your marketing, right? A lot of the marketing automation platforms, including dotdigital, have very, very kind of productive analytics and ways to dig into whether or not your message is resonating. So that's something that we do on a regular basis, both segmenting and then measuring, right? Measuring that your messaging is landing. Mm-hmm. Okay, customer data, right? So marketing automation spoke a little bit to kind of prospects and building up that trust and landing messages that make sense. But once you have a customer and you want to kind of maintain that relationship and build loyalty, what are some of your top tips for responsible customer data management?
Continue to make sure that you're hitting those expectations that they have, right? So, continuing to use that data in a way that they are having that expectation that you'll use that data for, and that you're not breaking that trust that they have given you as somebody that has been given information by those recipients and those consumers, and keeping that trust very, very clear and not broken, and making sure that they're continuing to receive what they want to receive.
Just check time real quick. Okay. I think we have time for one more question, and then if there's any Q&A, but I think we're coming up close to time.
Did you want to talk about the optimization piece?
I would love to, and I just realized I haven't been progressing slides, so let me just, not that it 100% matters because they're fairly simple, but here we go. Last question. Okay. So when we're talking about optimization, one of the things to keep in mind is that consent doesn't last forever, right? So we're very focused on consent when we collect the data, and then we just assume they're going to stick with us forever unless they opt out. But there is an opportunity, I think, to kind of manage expectations around how you're using data and what that consent means, and sort of looking at getting continual consent to continue to kind of land in people's inboxes. Or I think it's even more important when you're texting them, because that's more immediate and it's almost more of a precious channel. And then thinking about data security as part of optimization, right? So if you're not storing your data appropriately, if you're not, having some of the credentials you mentioned are a really helpful way of maintaining data security and staying on the up and up on all of the different regulations. But if you're not managing it appropriately, it's not actionable data, right? And you can't optimize something that you don't have. So I think a lot of the things that we've talked about up until now feed into optimization. And if you followed kind of steps 1 through 4, then 5 builds on top of it. And you just use everything you've learned up until then to continue to optimize. So the work is never done. Yep. I think, as everyone knows.
Never done.
Never done. Okay, I think we're right about at 10 minutes. I don't know if John is gonna come back on. I don't know if we have time for questions. We try to be respectful of the schedule.
No, that was great. Well, very well done. Thanks for that. Yeah, you know what we normally do is if folks have questions, they can reach out to you guys directly. If you want to each put your email address, your contact information into the chat function here, and just make sure that it's set to the panelists and attendees, to everyone. Just put your contact info there, and then folks who have questions can reach out to you on their own if you like. And appreciate you guys jumping on and taking part in this. And hopefully it's the start of many happy returns. We know many people at your organization, and it's just great to have you guys involved.
I'm sure we'll see you again. It's been great to be here.
Yeah, well, fantastic. Well, any parting shots before we go?
I think we're going to both join kind of the roundtable following. So Tanya posted her email address, but we'll also, be joining the roundtable to get to know people. So hopefully we'll see everyone there.
Great. Well, good. Well, hopefully we'll meet in person someday. And thanks so much for taking a minute here with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.